He went to sleep like he did every single night. No warning, no chest pain, no shortness of breath, just a normal Tuesday night. His wife kissed him goodnight. His kids were asleep down the hall, and by 2 a.m. he was gone. He was 52 years old, never had a heart attack, never diagnosed with anything serious. But he had a habit, a small, completely ordinary habit that he did every night before bed. And that habit quietly, invisibly, destroyed his cardiovascular system from the inside until one night his heart simply stopped. Now, here is the part that should genuinely alarm you. If you are doing what the majority of Americans are doing right now before they go to sleep, you may have the exact same habit, and your body may already be paying the price. You just don't feel it yet. In this video, I am going to show you 3 things. First, I'm going to reveal the specific nighttime behavior that is silently tripling your risk of a fatal heart attack or stroke while you sleep, and it's not what most doctors are warning you about. Second, I'm going to walk you through the exact biological chain reaction that happens inside your arteries every single night while you think you're resting peacefully. And third, this is the one that almost nobody is talking about. I'm going to expose a hidden ingredient that is sitting in nearly every American home right now, in products that people consider completely normal, and it is making all of this dramatically, measurably worse. Researchers have known about this connection for years, but almost no one is connecting these dots in a way that actually changes behavior. By the time this video ends, you will have information that most people, including most people who think they eat well and live healthy, will never hear from their doctor. Before we go any further, I want you to stop for a second. Think about what you did last night before you went to bed. Think carefully. Was there a specific craving? A ritual you almost do on autopilot? Maybe something you've never really questioned because everyone around you does it too? Drop a yes in the comments right now if you have ever woken up between 2 and 4 in the morning with your heart pounding, racing out of nowhere, and had absolutely no idea why. Because what you're about to hear explains exactly what is happening in those moments. And it is not anxiety, it is not random, it is your body sending you a signal. And most people sleep right through it until it's too late. Let me introduce you to Michael. Michael was a 52-year-old high school football coach from a small town in Ohio. He was the guy who showed up early to every practice, stayed late to help struggling students, and grilled burgers every Saturday for whoever showed up at his house. He wasn't obese. He wasn't sedentary. He lifted weights a few times a week. His doctor had told him at his last checkup that his numbers were, quote, pretty good for his age. Michael's nightly routine was simple. After a long day of coaching and paperwork, he'd sit down in his recliner around 9 p.m., flip on the game, have 2 or 3 beers, eat whatever was left over from dinner, usually some chips, sometimes cold pizza, and eventually drift off right there in the chair. Sometimes he'd wake up and go to bed, sometimes he'd sleep there all night. His wife said he snored. Pretty loudly, actually. She'd gotten so used to it she stopped noticing. Nobody ever told Michael that what he was doing every single night was building a biological bomb inside his chest. On a Tuesday in November, he went to bed at 11 p.m. By 2 a.m., he was gone. The autopsy showed massive arterial blockage and evidence of severe sleep apnea that had never once been diagnosed. His wife thought the snoring was just snoring. So what actually happened to Michael? Because it wasn't one thing, it was never one thing. Think of your cardiovascular system like a highway. When that highway is well maintained, traffic in your blood flows smoothly even during heavy demand. But when the road starts to crack and narrow, traffic backs up, pressure builds, and if something suddenly blocks one lane completely, the whole system collapses. Now imagine that every single night, while you think you're resting, someone is secretly pouring sand into the road, cracking the pavement, narrowing the lanes. That's what the wrong nighttime habits do. Slowly, invisibly, relentlessly, until one night, the road finally gives out. Let me show you exactly how that happens, point by point. Late night eating is not just a weight problem. It is a cardiovascular event in slow motion, and most people have absolutely no idea. Here is what happens in your body when you eat within 2 to 3 hours of sleep. Your circadian rhythm, the internal biological clock that controls nearly every system in your body, is programmed to slow down digestion as the night progresses. Insulin sensitivity drops, your liver shifts into overnight maintenance mode, and your cardiovascular system begins its own wind-down process. When you override that system by dumping a large meal into your body right before bed, your blood sugar spikes hard. Insulin floods your bloodstream. Your blood becomes measurably thicker and more viscous, a condition researchers call postprandial hypercoagulability, which means your blood is literally more likely to clot in the hours after a big meal. Now take that thick, high-pressure blood and push it through arteries that are already partially narrowed from years of inflammation, and your heart has to work significantly harder just to maintain circulation. This is happening while you are unconscious, while you feel absolutely nothing. A large-scale study found that people who regularly eat within 90 minutes of going to sleep have substantially higher rates of cardiovascular events compared to people who stop eating 3 or more hours before bed. But here's what makes this even more dangerous, and almost nobody knows this part. It's not just when you eat, it's what you eat. And that brings us to the next point, which is where the real danger hides. Alcohol before bed is doing two things to your body simultaneously, and both of them are killing your heart. But the way it does it is almost cruel, because it feels like it's helping you. Most people genuinely believe that alcohol helps them sleep, and in a very narrow sense, it does make you fall asleep faster. But what it does to the structure of your sleep is devastating. Alcohol powerfully suppresses REM sleep, the deep, biologically critical phase where your body repairs tissue, regulates hormones, consolidates memory, and most importantly for this conversation, restores your cardiovascular system to its natural overnight resting state. Your blood pressure is supposed to drop during deep sleep. Your heart rate is supposed to slow. Your arteries are supposed to get a break. Alcohol prevents that from happening. But here is the part that most people have never heard. As your body metabolizes alcohol, which typically happens between 2 and 4 in the morning, it creates what physiologists call a rebound effect. Your central nervous system, which was artificially suppressed by the alcohol, suddenly snaps back into full activation mode. Your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight system, floods your body with adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate jumps. Your blood pressure spikes suddenly and significantly. This is the exact reason so many people wake up at 3 a.m. after drinking, heart pounding, anxious, often sweating, with no idea why. And this is also the exact physiological window during which most fatal cardiovascular events occur in people with underlying, often undiagnosed, arterial disease. The combination of thickened blood from late eating, already narrowed arteries, and a sympathetic nervous system that just went from 0 to 60 in the middle of the night is not just unhealthy. It is a medically documented pathway to sudden cardiac death. But the next point is the one that stunned me most when I first looked at the research. Sleep apnea is the silent assassin hiding in plain sight, and it almost certainly does not look the way you think it does. Most Americans picture sleep apnea as a condition that only affects very overweight people who can barely breathe at night. That picture is dangerously, fatally wrong. Research published in the Journal of the American Heart Association found that a significant percentage of people with moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea are not clinically obese. They are regular people, people with slightly narrow airways, people with thicker necks, people who sleep on their backs, people who drink a little alcohol before bed because alcohol specifically relaxes the throat muscles, making airway collapse dramatically more likely. This is what happens during an apnea episode. Your airway collapses partially or completely. You stop breathing, your blood oxygen levels begin to fall, your brain detects the oxygen drop and sends an emergency distress signal. You gasp, you partially wake, you restart breathing, and in that moment, your body dumps a massive shot of adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream. Your blood pressure can spike from a normal resting level to hypertensive crisis levels in a matter of seconds. And in people with moderate to severe apnea, this can happen dozens, sometimes hundreds, of times per night. Every single one of those events puts enormous mechanical stress on your arterial walls. It accelerates the formation of plaques. It drives systemic inflammation. It forces your heart to work against sudden, violent pressure changes while you sleep. Michael's wife said he snored sometimes. Nobody ordered a sleep study. Nobody connected it to cardiovascular risk, and that oversight cost him his life. But the damage doesn't stop at the arteries. The next point shows where it goes next. Inflammation is the true engine of cardiovascular disease, and you are feeding it every night with something that has been hiding in your kitchen for decades. Here is something the mainstream conversation about heart health consistently gets wrong. Heart attacks are not primarily caused by high cholesterol. They are caused by inflammation. Cholesterol, specifically LDL, is more like the repair material your body uses to patch inflamed and damaged arterial walls. If your arterial walls are severely inflamed, your body needs a lot of patch material. That material builds up, it hardens, it calcifies, it blocks blood flow. So the critical question is not, how do I lower my cholesterol? The critical question is, what is causing the inflammation? And the answer, the one that connects directly to Michael's nightly bowl of chips and everything you eat after 8 p.m., is refined seed oils. Vegetable oil, canola oil, soybean oil, corn oil. These oils are extraordinarily high in omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids. In a healthy human diet, the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids should be somewhere around 4:1. In the modern American diet, that ratio has shifted to somewhere between 20:1 and 30:1 in many people. That extreme imbalance drives chronic, systemic inflammatory responses throughout the body. It damages the endothelial cells, the thin, critical layer of cells lining every blood vessel in your body. And it makes every other risk factor we've discussed, the sleep apnea damage, the blood pressure spikes, the overnight clotting, measurably, significantly worse. This is not a fringe theory. This is peer-reviewed science, and almost nobody is connecting it to what they eat at 10 p.m. while watching television. Your blood pressure does not rest the way you think it does at night, and the gap between what it should be doing and what it is actually doing is exactly where strokes are silently born. In a healthy cardiovascular system, blood pressure naturally decreases by roughly 10 to 20% during sleep. Cardiologists call this nocturnal dipping, and it is critically important. It gives your heart, your arteries, and the small blood vessels in your brain a period of genuine rest and recovery every single night. But people who eat late, drink before bed, and have untreated sleep apnea frequently lose this dipping pattern entirely. They become what researchers call non-dippers. Their blood pressure does not fall during sleep. In some cases, particularly during apnea events, it actually rises significantly. And this pattern of sustained elevated overnight blood pressure, happening night after night, month after month, year after year, is systematically destroying the most vulnerable blood vessels in the body, particularly the tiny, delicate vessels in the brain. A study published in the journal Hypertension found that non-dippers had dramatically higher rates of what researchers call silent cerebrovascular lesions, microstrokes that produce no symptoms you would notice, no sudden paralysis, no speech problems, nothing you would even register in the moment, but they accumulate, and each one leaves behind a small scar. And those scars add up over years until one day the damage is too great to compensate for. This is one of the primary mechanisms behind what doctors frustratingly describe as a stroke that came out of nowhere. It didn't come from nowhere. It came from 1,000 silent nights of elevated pressure in vessels that were never given a chance to rest. Your heart runs on electricity, and the wrong nighttime habits are scrambling that electrical system in a way that can kill you instantly, without any warning at all. This is the mechanism that most people, even many physicians, don't fully appreciate. Most people understand heart attacks conceptually. A blockage cuts off blood supply to part of the heart muscle, that muscle dies, the heart struggles or stops. But sudden cardiac death, the kind that takes someone like Michael in the middle of the night with no warning, often happens through a completely different pathway. It happens through cardiac arrhythmia, a disruption to the electrical signals that coordinate the heartbeat. Here's the connection. When you have a sleep apnea event and your blood oxygen drops, that oxygen deprivation directly disrupts the electrical conduction system of the heart. It creates what cardiologists call electrical instability in the myocardium. This is why atrial fibrillation, a chaotic, dangerous, potentially fatal heart rhythm, occurs significantly and measurably more often in people with untreated sleep apnea than in the general population. And atrial fibrillation carries with it a dramatically elevated stroke risk, because when the upper chambers of the heart beat chaotically rather than in a coordinated rhythm, blood pools and forms clots. Those clots travel, they reach the brain. This is what the evidence strongly suggests happened to Michael. His heart went into a fatal arrhythmia triggered by the perfect storm of untreated sleep apnea, a cardiovascular system already compromised by years of inflammation, and the adrenaline surge of the alcohol rebound at 2 a.m. It was not one bad night. It was the accumulated result of 1,000 ordinary nights that nobody ever told him were dangerous. Now here is the point that 99% of people completely miss, even people who are genuinely trying to live healthy lives. Your gut microbiome is actively controlling your cardiovascular risk profile while you sleep, and the habits we have discussed are destroying it every single night. This is the frontier of cardiovascular research, and what scientists are finding is genuinely stunning. Your gut contains approximately 39 trillion microorganisms. These bacteria are not passengers. They are active participants in your physiology. They produce compounds that regulate systemic inflammation. They influence blood pressure. They affect how your liver processes cholesterol. They control the thickness and clotting tendency of your blood. One specific compound they produce is called trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO. When certain gut bacteria metabolize specific foods, particularly red meat and certain other animal products, they produce TMAO as a byproduct. And elevated blood levels of TMAO have been directly and causally linked in multiple peer-reviewed studies to accelerated arterial plaque formation, increased clotting risk, and higher rates of major cardiovascular events. But here is the devastating part of this connection. Alcohol, even moderate regular alcohol consumption, significantly and measurably disrupts the gut microbiome. It shifts the community of bacteria towards strains that produce more pro-inflammatory compounds. It increases intestinal permeability, the condition researchers commonly refer to as leaky gut, which allows bacterial endotoxins to cross from the gut into the bloodstream, where they trigger widespread systemic inflammation. And this gut disruption is at its most severe during the metabolic processing window that follows alcohol consumption, which is, of course, the middle of the night, while you are asleep and completely unaware. This is the hidden mechanism. This is the connection between Michael's nightly beers and chips and the catastrophic arterial state the autopsy revealed. It was not just the obvious things, the blood pressure, the sleep apnea. It was this invisible nightly destruction of the biological systems that were supposed to be protecting him. Here is something you can do tonight. Not next week, not after you finish this video and forget about it. Tonight, drink 8 ounces of water with a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt and a small squeeze of fresh lemon juice before you go to sleep. That sounds almost insultingly simple, I know. But here's the physiological reason it matters. One of the core mechanisms by which late-night eating and alcohol consumption elevate cardiovascular risk is through dehydration and the resulting increase in blood viscosity. Thicker blood is harder for the heart to pump. Thicker blood is more likely to clot. And most people are mildly to moderately dehydrated by the time they go to sleep, especially if they've had alcohol. Plain water alone often isn't efficiently absorbed. Your kidneys process and excrete it quickly. The salt and the electrolytes in the lemon actually help your cells absorb and retain the water where it's needed. This one small habit, done consistently, has been shown in clinical research to measurably reduce overnight blood pressure fluctuations and support better cardiovascular recovery during sleep. Will it reverse years of arterial damage? No. But it is something real you can do in the next 2 hours that will make tonight biologically safer than last night. Beyond that, And I am asking you sincerely, if anyone in your life has told you that you snore, please take that seriously. A home sleep study now costs less than $100. It's a small device you wear on your finger overnight. That simple test could tell you whether you have sleep apnea. That simple test could save your life. And if you eat within 2 hours of sleep regularly, try moving your last meal to 3 hours before bed for just 2 weeks. Give your body the overnight window it was biologically designed to have. Track how you feel in the morning. Your body will tell you the truth in ways your doctor's annual checkup never will. You just learned something that most people, including most people who genuinely believe they are living healthy lives, have absolutely no idea about. You understand now that what happens while you sleep is not passive. It is one of the most metabolically and cardiovascularly significant periods of your entire day. You understand that snoring is not just an annoyance. You understand that alcohol before bed is not helping you rest. It is triggering a physiological crisis at 2 a.m. while you are completely unconscious. You understand that the chips and the late pizza are not just empty calories. They are feeding an inflammatory cascade that is damaging your arterial walls while you sleep. And you understand the gut connection, the electrical connection, the blood pressure connection, the full picture that nobody handed Michael before it was too late. You have that picture now. And that means you can do something about it. Now, if this video genuinely changed the way you think about your health, then I need you to watch the next one. Because what I am about to show you is something that is going to surprise you even more. There is a morning habit, something that millions of Americans do before 9 a.m., something widely considered healthy, something your doctor has almost certainly never warned you about, that is causing dangerous cardiovascular stress before your day even begins. The data on this is remarkable. And once you see it, you will never think about your morning routine the same way again. Click the next video, because that information might be the most important thing you hear all week.